Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the AEW Dynamite review. Dynamite tonight was from the Canada Life Center in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. This is AEW's debut in Canada for Dynamite. And the show tonight, I thought it was a very good show. It was very entertaining Dynamite tonight. It was better than the previous week's shows. And we had 3 titles being defended tonight on Dynamite. We had the TBS Championship on the line where Jade Cargill defended the title because Jade Cargill issued an Canadian Open challenge for the title. So she ended up taking on Nicole Matthews. We had the AEW International Championship on the line, which originally was the All-Atlantic Championship, but they renamed it to the International Championship. So we had Orange Cassidy defend the title against Jeff Jarrett. And we also had the Trios Championship on the line in a 3-way match. The House of Black defend the titles against the Elite and the Jericho Appreciation Society. And we also had the Blackpool Combat Club versus Hangman and Page, Stu Grayson, and Eve Luno. And we celebrated MJF's Bar Mitzvah. But overall, Dynamite tonight, very good, entertaining show. Was way better than the previous week's Dynamite. But let's jump right into the review. Dynamite opened up tonight with MJF's Bar Mitzvah celebration. And this whole segment, I really enjoyed. This was fantastic. Loved every second of this. This segment went on for 18 minutes. So we had balloons that set up in the ring. They were blue and white. And MJF, the AEW World Champion, ended up coming out. He was accompanied by some ladies. And he actually kissed one of the ladies before he made his way to the ring. So then as MJF made his way into the ring, we had blue and white streamers end up shooting out. So MJF then got on the mic. He called for his music to be cut. And he ended up letting the crowd in Winnipeg know what he thinks of Bret Hart. Because he was like to the crowd, you people actually thought that Bret Hart was entertaining. And then he was like, no offense, we all know Shawn was better. Talking about Shawn Michaels. So, right there, MJF took a shot at Bret Hart. So, saying, well, my religion, the religion that only matters, Judaism. So he talks about that. So it led to MJF bragging about him winning at Revolution over Bryan Danielson. He ended up saying that he is no longer just a man, but an Iron Man. So then he ended up calling for the music to start. So we had the celebration start. A group of people end up coming from the back, and they were dancing around a chair in the ring, just circling the chair. Appa, like Appa. So the crowd ended up booing at that. And I gotta say, the crowd there in Winnipeg tonight was hot. This was a great crowd. So then Jungle Boy's music ended up hitting. Jungle Boy ended up coming out, and he got a pop from the crowd. And he also got a chant. So Jungle Boy was getting ready to speak, but then he got interrupted by Sammy Guevara. So we had Sammy Guevara end up coming out. Jungle Boy and MJF looked perplexed as Guevara ended up heading to the ring. Guevara ended up taking a piece of the cake that was at ringside and tasted it, because there was cake, at ringside on a table. So Guevara got boos from the Winnipeg crowd. Guevara started to call MJF out. And then all of a sudden, Darby Allin ended up making his way out. So MJF demanded the music to be stopped. So MJF ended up asking, Guevara, Jungle Boy, and Darby Allin, what they all want. So we had all three guys. We had Guevara, Darby Allin, and Jungle Boy end up saying they all want a title match. So that got a big pop from the crowd. Jungle Boy ended up talking about his match with MJF that he had 3 years ago and the different paths they've taken since. Jungle Boy even pointed out that unlike the other three men, MJF has not been on AEW Dark, Elevation, or even Rampage on a regular basis. So he ended up getting into the matter of screen time for MJF. And he ended up calling MJF out for doing the same hokey BS for 4 years. So MJF ended up saying that the company does revolve around him because he is actually a star. And then he was cut off by Sammy Guevara. Sammy Guevara ended up threatening to make this rebar mitzvah a recircumcision. So Guevara talked about the grind of being on the independent scene for 10 plus years and that the small jobs he had to do for extra income. And then he talked about how he was regulated to specific roles in the inner circle and beyond. So he kept saying, much like Jungle Boy, he makes the case of him going after the AEW World Championship. So MJF ended up calling Guevara on his rhetoric, but he was quickly cut off by Darby Allin. Darby Allin got on the mic, he was in the corner, and he ended up talking about a student film that he made in 2013, 10 years ago, and dropping out. He ended up saying him dropping out was a blessing in disguise, since it opened the door for him to become a pro wrestler. He ended up saying where he focused on either succeeding or failing, but will never chance a thing. So Darby ended up saying that he credits AEW and Tony Khan for giving him an opportunity to be himself. And he ended up calling MJF on his bidding war. The whole 2024 thing of MJF threatening to get out of his contract. And then he ended up talking about getting a championship match. So MJF, he was wearing sunglasses the entire time here. And MJF ended up taking off the sunglasses. And he started yelling at Jungle Boy and Darby Allin and Sammy Guevara in the ring. He ended up revealing the damage still lasting from the Iron Man match at Revolution because he had a black eye. And MJF ended up calling out all three guys, saying he never had to be enrolled in AEW Daycare. This was, of course, referring to Guevara being attached to, of course, Jericho, and Jungle Boy being attached to Christian Cage, and Darby Allin being attached to Sting. He kept saying that none of the other pillars deserve to even sniff his world championship. So he ended up saying, what's going to happen next is these three men will leave, and he's going to have his cake because he deserves it. So then MJF ended up saying to Sammy Guevara, thank you, goes over to Darby Allin and says, screw you. And then MJF went over to Jungle Boy, said to Jungle Boy, bye. And then he shoved Jungle Boy's face. He turned around, and then Jungle Boy ended up attacking MJF from behind with the mic. And then we had Jungle Boy, Darby Allin, and Sammy Guevara going at it. You had MJF end up going off the apron, landed on the table with the cake. So MJF had, cake on him. And pretty much that was basically how the segment ended. But overall, really loved the segment. This was a very entertaining, fantastic segment here. And then with Sammy Guevara, Darby Allin, and Jungle Boy in this, they all want a shot at the World Championship. I think we're going to be getting a 3-way match with these 3 guys, and the winner of that match will get to face MJF for the title, and that will possibly be the championship match at Double or Nothing. So I think that's what they're set up for. But overall, very entertaining, fantastic segment this was. Loved the hell out of it for 18 minutes. The segment, lasted 18 minutes. And then we had the first match of the night. We had Hangman Page and the Dark Order, Evil Uno and Stu Grayson, versus the Blackpool Combat Club, Jon Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, and Wheeler Yuta. And this was a very good, entertaining match here. Match started off with Evil Uno giving Wheeler Yuta a boot to the face, and he ended up getting sent to the corner, and Yuta ended up taking in Moxley. Moxley ended up taking down Evil Uno, and then we had Yuta end up taking in Claudio. Claudio ended up taking Evil Uno down, ended up going for the cover, and Evil Uno ended up kicking out. Evil Uno ended up going back to the corner as Claudio ended up slamming Evil Uno back down, and Claudio ended up going for another cover, and then Evil Uno ended up kicking out. Claudio then ended up taking in Wheeler Yuta. Wheeler Yuta ended up hitting a double stomp on Evil Uno. Yuta ended up going for the cover, and Evil Uno ended up kicking out. So we had Yuta end up tagging in Moxley. Moxley ended up hitting Evil Uno hard, and he ended up making a tag to Wheeler Yuta. So Yuta and Evil Uno were trading blows, and Evil Uno ended up evading an attack to tag in Stu Grayson. Stu Grayson came in, and he was on fire. He ended up going into Wheeler Yuta, and he ended up going for the cover. Moxley broke up the pin attempt, only to get taken out of the ring. So we had, later on, Claudio was in there. Stu Grayson stood on top of Claudio. He was hitting some offense, and Stu Grayson ended up getting a near fall, and he ended up going for a torture rack. Claudio ended up breaking out of the torture rack, and he ended up sending Stu Grayson out of the ring. So we had Claudio, Wheeler Yuta, and Moxley end up taking Stu Grayson down with a spike pile driver. And then as Dynamite came back from the commercial, Claudio ended up tagging in. Stu Grayson ended up fighting back with a jawbreaker, and Claudio just laid Stu Grayson with an uppercut. So Claudio ended up going for the cover, and Stu Grayson ended up kicking out. Claudio then tagged in Moxley. Moxley ended up hitting a big kick to Stu Grayson's midsection, and he ended up hitting a pile driver. So Moxley ended up going for the cover. Stu Grayson ended up kicking out. Grayson ended up crawling to a corner, but Moxley stayed on the attack on Grayson. And we had Stu Grayson end up delivering a running knee to Moxley's face. So Grayson ended up getting the tag to Hangman and Page. And we had things end up breaking down. It got chaotic. And we had Page end up hitting a fallaway slam on Wheeler Yuta. And he ended up diving onto Claudio. So Wheeler Yuta ended up escaping a powerbomb from Page. Evil Uno ended up blind tagging in. Page ended up hitting the powerbomb on Yuta, and Evil Uno end up hitting a big senton on Yuta. So Moxley and Claudio end up getting involved. Both guys end up getting taken out of the ring. Moxley made it back to the apron, got the tag, and we had a standoff between Moxley and Page. So we haven't seen them, face to face since their Texas Death match at Revolution, which was great. So we had Moxley and Page. They were trading blows at each other. Page ended up hitting a lariat to Moxley, which turned Moxley inside out. So Page didn't get the buckshot lariat on Moxley because Yuta ended up hitting Page in the back with the ring bell. So the referee didn't even see that. And we heard the crowd saying, stupid ref, or something like that. So there was a referee chant from the crowd there. So the Dark Order, we had Grayson and Evil Uno. They were checking on Page. And they ended up running into the ring to fight off Claudio and Moxley. Yuta ended up hitting a chop block on Evil Uno to turn things back to the Blackpool Combat Club. Claudio got sent out of the ring by Stu Grayson. And Stu Grayson ended up dodging an attack by Yuta. He ended up hitting a big dive onto Claudio on the outside. So at the end of the match, we had Yuta pulling Evil Uno off the apron. Moxley ended up locking in a rear choke on Stu Grayson. And that was that. The Blackpool Combat Club ended up winning the match. So post-match, Moxley switched from the rear choke to a bulldog choke on Stu Grayson. But Evil Uno ended up running to make the save. But the Blackpool Combat Club ended up taking Evil Uno down. So they were beating up both Evil Uno and Stu Grayson. And then Alex Reynolds and John Silver ran down to make the save. So the Blackpool Combat Club ended up regrouping, and they retreated through the crowd, and that was that. But overall, this was a very good match here between Page, Evil Uno, Stu Grayson, and Blackpool Combat Club. So just really enjoyed it. And then we had a video package that was showcasing Juice Robinson. Juice Robinson was stating his intentions with Ricky Starks. So we ended up seeing that. So then we had Jade Cargill's Canadian Open Challenge for the TBS Championship. So the woman that stepped up to the challenge was Nicole Matthews. But you all know who won this match. If you said Nicole Matthews, no, you are wrong. Jade Cargill won the match, retaining the TBS Championship. Post-match, Renee Paquette ended up heading down to the ring to interview Jade Cargill, but Renee Paquette was nearly threatened by Cargill. So Jade Cargill ended up getting on the mic. She ended up saying, "Oh, is this all they have for her?" And then we had TAYA VALKYRIE end up coming out. TAYA VALKYRIE making her AEW debut. It's been a while since I've seen TAYA VALKYRIE. Of course, she was in Lucha Underground. And then the last I saw her was when she was in NXT, when she was known as Frankie Monet. Of course, she's the wife to John Morrison. So TAYA VALKYRIE ended up coming out. And she got a big pop from the crowd there in Winnipeg. TAYA ended up making her way down to the ring. She stared down Jade Cargill. So both TAYA and Cargill ended up having a few words. Layla Gray intervenes, which gave Jade Cargill to leave the ring. Layla Gray ended up trying to attack TAYA. So TAYA ended up laying out Layla Gray. Mark Sterling ended up running down to keep Jade from getting involved. And that was basically that. So Jade Cargill's next opponent is TAYA VALKYRIE for the TBS Championship. So that should be a pretty good match there. And then we had Tony Schiavone. Tony Schiavone was backstage. He was standing with Ricky Starks. Starks ended up telling Tony Schiavone about Juice Robinson. And he ended up saying to Juice Robinson to do something for himself. Starks ended up telling Juice Robinson if he wants to bring the Bullet Club in, he can do that too. So pretty much that was what Ricky Starks had to say. And then as Dynamite came back from the commercial, we had the debut of QTV with QT Marshall. And basically what this was QT Marshall and his crew were behind breaking into Wardlow's car to take the TNT Championship and his passport. Because there was a report that came out that Wardlow's car was broken into. Someone took the TNT Championship when he held the title. And pretty much this was part of a storyline. QT Marshall and his crew were behind this. So we have Wardlow. They then end up saying that Wardlow won't be here tonight. And Hobbs let Wardlow know that this is his world, that this is Will's world now. And that was basically that. This whole QTV thing was fucking awful. Absolutely terrible. Who's going to care about QTV? Every time there's a QTV segment, might as well just take my bathroom break. Shit's awful. And then they announced an open challenge for the TNT Championship coming to Rampage. So Hobbs is going to issue an open challenge for the TNT Championship. And then we had the AEW International Championship on the line, formerly known as the All-Atlantic Championship. So we had Orange Cassidy versus Jeff Jarrett. Orange Cassidy defending the title. It's 2023, and Jeff Jarrett is getting a title shot. Could you all believe that? So we had Jeff Jarrett being accompanied by Jay Lethal, Sanjay Dutt, and Satnam Singh. So we had the match end up getting underway where Jeff Jarrett ended up getting an early advantage on Orange Cassidy. And then he ended up doing his strut, strutting, in the ring. So Orange Cassidy got back to his feet, and Cassidy and Jarrett ended up locking up. Jarrett still had the advantage, and he ended up doing another strut. Ended up laying on the top turnbuckle to mock Orange Cassidy. Jarrett stopped Cassidy again from putting his hands in his pockets, and he ended up taking advantage of Cassidy's injured leg, and then he mocked Cassidy again. And this time, Jarrett ended up mocking Cassidy's famous kicks, the dangerous kicks where the crowd goes, oh, oh, oh. And then Orange Cassidy responded by getting to his feet, ended up hitting some chops to Jarrett. Jarrett ended up sending Cassidy back to the corner, and Cassidy moved out of the way. Jarrett ended up going into the turnbuckles, and we had Cassidy end up dealing with Sanjay Dutt on the ring apron, and that's when Jarrett ended up sneak attacking Cassidy. So then as Dynamite came back from the commercial, Jarrett was still in control of the match. He continued the attack on Orange Cassidy with a mic to his head. So we had Jeff Jarrett ended up sliding into the ring, distracting Bryce Rumsberg, who was the referee. Satnam Singh hoisted Orange Cassidy up, tossed him into the ring. So Jarrett focused on Cassidy's injured knee. He was looking to go for the figure four, only to go for a sharpshooter, so he locked in the sharpshooter on Orange Cassidy. Cassidy was struggling, but he managed to fight back out of the sharpshooter, and he locked in the sharpshooter on Jeff Jarrett. Jarrett ended up getting to the bottom rope, which Sanjay Dutt and Satnam Singh ended up assisting that. Jarrett then locked in the sleeper hold on Cassidy. Cassidy was starting to fade, but he ended up fighting out of the sleeper hold. He ended up putting his hands in his pockets, and he ended up laying Jarrett with a jawbreaker to break up the sleeper hold. Cassidy ended up going for a hold of his own as Sanjay Dutt hopped onto the ring apron, which allowed Satnam Singh to intervene. Jarrett then locked in the figure four on Cassidy. So Cassidy ended up falling to his shoulders, which gave Jarrett a couple of near falls. So now Jarrett and Cassidy were trading blows, and both of them collided foreheads, and they ended up knocking Bryce Rumsberg out. Satnam Singh ended up sliding in Jeff Jarrett's guitar, but Aubrey Edwards ended up heading down to the ring. Aubrey then pulled the guitar away from Jarrett. Cassidy ended up rolling Jarrett up, and Jarrett ended up kicking out. So Jarrett and Aubrey were arguing. Orange Cassidy grabbed the guitar. Satnam Singh pulled the guitar away from Cassidy. Cassidy tapped Aubrey on the shoulder, and he ended up pointing to Satnam Singh. He fell to his back, and it led to Aubrey ejecting both Satnam Singh and Sanjay Dutt from ringside. So while this was all going on, Cassidy started to fight back. Jay Lethal ended up running in. Jay Lethal ended up hitting Orange Cassidy with the Golden Globe, the fake Golden Globe. Well, why are we still doing this fake Golden Globe shit? Why? So then Jay Lethal ended up getting out of the ring. So Jarrett ended up trying to go for the cover on Orange Cassidy. Cassidy ended up kicking out. So Trent Beretta ended up coming down. Trent Beretta ended up taking out Jay Lethal on the floor. Jarrett tried to get the guitar again, but he ended up getting taken down with the orange punch from Orange Cassidy. Cassidy ended up going for the cover, and there you go. Orange Cassidy ended up winning the match, retaining the International Championship. But there were points here where, you get that mini heart attack thinking that Jeff Jarrett was going to win the International Championship. Obviously, that would have been bad. That would have been bad if they gave Jeff Jarrett the win and he would be the new international champion. But overall, the match was okay, in my opinion. And then as Dynamite came back from the commercial, we had a video package from the Acclaimed. And Max Caster was rapping about how everybody, and they mean everybody, loves the Acclaimed. It was a very fun, video package. And then we saw the Outcasts. Saraya, Toni Storm, and Ruby Soho. They're now being called the Outcasts. Of course, Ruby Soho turned heel at Revolution, and she aligned with Toni Storm and Saraya. So all three of them end up making their way out. Ruby Soho got on the mic. She offered the crowd a story. She was talking about the grass being greener in AEW until a couple of dogs came along to piss all along the grass. So Ruby was like, what do we do with them? So Saraya ended up saying, we show them that this is our house. Saraya ended up saying that the crowd is lucky to have the three of them here in AEW. So Toni Storm then ended up speaking on the mess that was of her being an interim champion. She ended up saying that she wore it with a smile on her face, but none of the fans showed any appreciation. She ended up saying that she realized after Jamie Hayter beat her that none of the fans know what they want. She ended up saying that so the Outcasts are here to show them what they need, and they aren't going anywhere. So then we had Jamie Hayter, Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. They ended up heading to the ring, and they went after Saraya and Toni Storm and Ruby Soho. So the Outcasts started beating down on Jamie Hayter and Britt Baker. And we had Riho end up coming out to make the save, along with Sky Blue and Will Nightingale, because the Outcasts end up mentioning their names. They mention, Jamie Hayter, Britt Baker, Riho, Sky Blue, Willow Nightingale. So those women end up coming out to make the save. So the Outcasts end up leaving the ring. And pretty much that was basically that. But overall, I thought this was very meh, in my opinion. Thought this was a very meh segment with the Outcasts. And then as Dynamite came back from the commercial, we had Matt Menard and Angelo Parker. They end up calling out the Acclaimed. So then after that, we had Rey Fenix accepting Hobbs' open challenge for the TNT Championship on Rampage this Friday. So we're getting that on Friday. Not going to review Rampage on Friday because it's going to be on at 11:30 after the NCAA game. So I will only review SmackDown on Friday. So no AEW Rampage. It's going to be too late for me to review SmackDown and stay till 11:30 to review AEW Rampage. So only just going to review SmackDown on Friday. And then they announced one match that we're going to see next week on Dynamite. And that is the no DQ match between Hook and Stokely Hathaway. So we're going to see that on Dynamite next week. And then it also said we're going to have to watch Rampage to find out what other matches they announced for Dynamite next week. I highly doubt anybody's going to be watching Rampage at 11:30 this Friday. I may be the only one that watches Rampage. So, main event. The Trios Championship were on the line in a three-way Trios match. The Elite, Kenny Omega, and the Young Bucks, they defend the titles against the Jericho Appreciation Society, Jericho, Danny Garcia, and Sammy Guevara. Main event. The three-way Trios match for the AEW World Trios Championship. The House of Black, Malachi Black, Brody King, and Buddy Matthews, they defend the titles against the Elite, Kenny Omega, and the Young Bucks, versus the Jericho Appreciation Society, Chris Jericho, Danny Garcia, and Sammy Guevara. This was a fun three-way trios match here. Match started off with Brody King and Sammy Guevara. Guevara ended up delivering a drop kick to Brody King, but Brody King was unfazed by that drop kick, did nothing to Brody. So he laid in a chop to Guevara. Guevara was looking for a tag. Danny Garcia ended up tagging in. Garcia ended up going for a chop on Brody King. He ended up laying Danny Garcia down with a chop of his own. Danny Garcia ended up going to the Elite for a tag, but they wanted none of it. And it led to Danny Garcia trying to square up to Brody King. Brody King ended up booting Danny Garcia into his own corner. Jericho ended up tagging in. And then Malachi ended up tagging in. So Kenny Omega ended up making a blind tag to square off against Malachi Black because they have history together, both Malachi and Kenny Omega. So then, as Dynamite came back from the commercial, Malachi Black ended up coming in. Jericho started to fight back on Malachi Black. He ended up hitting some chops to Malachi Black. Black ended up dodging the Judas effect by Jericho. Jericho ended up taking Black down, and Black ended up kicking out. So Jericho ended up taking in Daniel Garcia. So Jericho and Garcia ended up double teaming on Malachi Black. Garcia ended up bringing Malachi Black to the corner as Guevara ended up tagging in. So Danny Garcia and Guevara ended up double teaming on Malachi Black. Black started to fight back. Guevara delivered a forearm and a kick to Black, but Nick Jackson ended up getting a blind tag in. And so Nick Jackson ended up taking down Guevara and Danny Garcia. So we had Nick Jackson ended up finding himself in a bad spot because he was dealing with the House of Black. Buddy Matthews ended up setting Nick Jackson up for a knee by Malachi. Buddy Matthews ended up tagging in. He ended up stopping Nick Jackson from making a tag. And he ended up taking an enziguri as Kenny Omega ended up tagging in. Kenny Omega delivered a crossbody on Buddy Matthews. Omega started unloading on everyone. He ended up hitting a combo on Buddy Matthews, ended up going for the cover. Buddy Matthews ended up kicking out. So we had Omega and Buddy Matthews ended up going back and forth. Jericho ended up making a tag. And we finally get Jericho and Kenny Omega. You know, it's been a while since we've seen Omega and Jericho go at it. So Omega and Jericho cleared the ring of the House of Black before they were trading blows. Omega ended up hitting a big knee to Jericho. Danny Garcia ended up hitting Kenny Omega. Brody King ended up hitting Danny Garcia. And it was just chaos in the ring. Omega ended up hitting a Snapdragon suplex to Buddy Matthews. Omega was looking to go for the V-trigger, but ended up getting caught in the walls of Jericho. And the Bucks end up delivering a super kick to Jericho. Both guys, both Matt and Nick. So then, as Dynamite came back from the commercial, Kenny Omega was in control. He delivered a chop, but Jericho responded with some forearms to Omega. Omega ended up setting himself up to, of course, a collapse. And he ended up hitting the big dive onto Jericho on the outside. Omega ended up sending Jericho back into the ring, but he got intercepted by the House of Black. So later on, Brody King, he was up on the turnbuckle. He got stopped by Omega because he was looking to go for a superplex. So Brody King ended up shoving Omega off the top. So Omega and Jericho end up delivering a double suplex to Brody King. So Omega ended up sending Brody out of the ring. And Omega ended up taking the codebreaker from Jericho. So there was a split screen. And it revealed a fight backstage between the Blackpool Combat Club and the Dark Order. So we had Jericho later on. He was trying to fight his way up. He handed Floyd the bat to Danny Garcia. Aubrey Edwards was distracted, and Danny Garcia ended up hitting Brody King with Floyd with the bat to Brody's face. So Guevara ended up hitting a moonsault on the outside, and Jericho ended up going for the cover, and Brody kicked out. So Guevara ended up making a tag to Danny Garcia. So the House of Black ended up delivering Dante's Inferno to Danny Garcia. And there you go. The House of Black ended up winning the match, retaining the AEW World Trios Championship. Post-match, Jake Hager ended up making his way out to the ring to help out the JAS. And Hager stared down Brody King. So Jake Hager ended up being taken out by the House of Black. So we had the fight from backstage end up making their way down to ringside. The Blackpool Combat Club and the Dark Order. So it left us with the Blackpool Combat Club and Hangman and Page in the ring. Page was backed up by the Elite. The Blackpool Combat Club retreated to the ramp, and it left us with Page turning to face his former friends as Dynamite went off the air. Overall, this was a very fun main event here, with these teams. Overall, Dynamite tonight, very good, entertaining show it was. Really enjoyed it. It was a lot better than the Dynamites we got the past few weeks. But anyways, that's it for my review of tonight's Dynamite. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys probably tomorrow night, because tomorrow I'm going to see Shazam! Fury of the Gods. So a movie review of that will be coming up maybe tomorrow. Going to a 7 o'clock showing. So that'll be the next video, a movie review of that. But anyways, until then, see you all later.